glad to hear that you're watching our latest episode, Late Nights with Dr. G. You have questions, I have answers. Well, today we're going to be talking about AI. What's so good about it? There's a lot of things that are good about it, but there's also some things that are kind of bad. And people are always Googling medical questions and thinking, oh, yeah, I can treat myself. Not necessarily. So we're going to kind of get into that to see what's good and what's not so good. And you got to take it for what it is. This is just educational information. I'm not telling you like a physician, but I am telling you how a physician thinks and what you should look for when you're talking about AI and how AI can affect you and in healthcare. Hey guys, I'm Dr. George Armandaris.
The topic, of course, is going to be AI. So I have been using it personally for parasite cleanse, candida cleanse, for what not to take. I bought Grapefruit the other day, and I haven't been able to take it.
No, Grapefruit can not only natural substances, but also a lot of medications. If you take grapefruit specifically,
strengthens it, or
it can weaken it, or it can inhibit.
Yeah.
Certain types of, especially homeopathic or natural substances, especially when you're talking about parasitic cleanses and stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful with grapefruit.
Couldn't even eat them.
You don't get that. You don't get that with pineapple juice, and pineapple juice has bromelain in it,
which helps apparently.
It helps a whole lot. And orange juice to an extent, it's helpful, but you just have to be careful because of the acidity of it. But yeah, grapefruit, there's, and I can't quite remember the specific item in it. Like we look at pineapple juice with bromelain. Grapefruit has a particular substance in it that is not good for not only natural ways of
prescription too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it can really affect certain prescription medications.
What are some of those things that are on prescriptions that people should avoid? Like, I know you can't have like lemon in certain prescriptions.
Well, it just depends. Now, and I don't know all of them. You're going to have to be kind of specific. And the nice thing is, getting back to AI, you can ask these simple questions to the AI and it will come up. And you can always, it's all about the prompts when you're talking about AI. And, a lot of people talk about ChatGPT. I think Gronk's probably a little bit better. But you can.
Which one is Gronk again?
Gronk is the one by Elon Musk.
Oh yeah.
With X. And the interesting thing about that one is that ChatGPT only scours the internet and gets those answers and questions, whatever you're looking for. It only does it through what's going on with the internet. Now, Gronk obviously does that too, but interestingly, it also gets into X and even earlier when it was Twitter, it gets in there and it works on what people are saying that are actually know what they're talking about. Because there's certain doctors that have done crazy amounts of research in a particular area. And so with Gronk, and this is the only reason I say it's better, it not only gives you what the internet says, but it also gives you very educated responses from people that kind of know what they're talking about. Now, you can take that for what it is, and that's the whole premise with AI. A lot of people say, oh, I'll take AI. And most of the time, AI is right. But what people don't realize, especially when we're talking about healthcare in AI, and it's going to change healthcare, like it's already changing healthcare. It's really going to change healthcare over the next 5 years, but definitely over the next 10 and 20 years, that you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because this goes back to Dr. Google. People Google certain particular things. And now it's going to give you every good and bad thing out there.
Yeah.
And we in our minds as humans, we go right to the bad thing.
Hypochondriac.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I can do this, or I can get this. Is that a possibility? Yes, because somebody, somewhere, sometime got that negative effect. And, by law, you have to say that, especially the different companies that have different medications and things of that nature. But there's certain protocols that these particular AI, and I include Gronk, I include ChatGPT, I include all of them in there, that they put in. They give you all the information. And if you're not educated enough to kind of decipher that particular information correctly, you can hurt yourself more than you can help yourself. And so that's why I always tell people, all of the stuff that we talk about, it's great, but you have to talk to if it's dealing with healthcare, mind you, or your health, you have to talk to your doctor that treats you and that knows you. Whether that's a cardiologist, a primary care doctor, maybe it's a functional medicine doctor, maybe it's a naturopathic doctor. It's somebody that knows you, has been treating you for a while, and knows how your body is going to respond to these type of things. And so that's why AI, it's going to be so amazing, because already now who I'm scared with for especially in medicine is the radiologist, because already, and AI is not even anywhere near where it's going to be literally in the next 2 years, much less 5 or 10 years.
Is this regarding the article that we talked about today?
Well, that's one aspect of them, but that was more that had to do with cardiomyopathy and cardiac events in people with cardiomyopathy. That was AI kind of figured that out. So prior to it happening, and so those people were able to get treated or have more tests, more extensive tests, more so than the other ones that didn't have, that AI said, no, they're doing
let's
okay.
Let's start one at a time, one in the other, because we have enough time today to go deep dive.
Yeah.
So let's just go with what you were saying about radiologists, and then after that, let's talk about.
Well, the only point about that is who I fear the most or the soonest that could be affected by AI is by way of physicians are the radiologists, and the only not the interventional. You're not going to have any AI anytime soon because the robots aren't that good yet to stick a needle in somebody's spine or to treat somebody's neck with a certain injection or something like that. So not those type of patients that do a lot of intense. And I talk, I include myself, thank God, because I do a lot of pain management and regenerative medicine, but also like the aesthetics, the liposuction and things of that nature. AI is not going to take that away anytime soon. All the surgeons, we need them. We need their hands. Okay. But radiologists, especially let's say a good old fashioned general radiologist that reads CAT scans, MRIs, and regular plain films, those particular specialties and some of the more subspecialties, neuroradiologists and things of that nature, they're going to have some issues probably sooner than later with AI, or let's say they're a larger hospital company or whatever company they're with, going to those type of systems, because it's already slowly proving that it can find issues with a patient from seeing a generalized scan years before it's going to get worse.
Yeah. Can we?
That's the article
break
you're
it down
to. That's a different article, but
yeah.
But there was an article that came out, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, that showed that the AI, it was an AI, it wasn't a true software just with AI, but AI was a part of the software, I should say. Anyway, the AI component of it was able to look at a plain film as well as standard mammograms, and what the human radiologist said, oh, that's normal. The AI said, yes, it's normal right now, but in approximately 2, 4, 6, 10 years, this area here and this area here might well develop into a breast cancer. And so they reviewed those. They took biopsies of those particular areas that AI said, and lo and behold, there was cancer there. It didn't grow to a point that you could tell that
So did the article say how it learned, how to detect that early?
You have to understand these AI, especially the AI software, that it's just not your standard ChatGPT and Grok. It's not like that. These are specific softwares that utilize AI to find a very, very specific thing. Like they're looking at mammograms or MRIs or whatever. And they don't just say, look at standard MRI and say, what do you find? They're like, what does this mammogram show in dealing with breast cancer? Or maybe it's a particular stage, a particular type of breast cancer. But the unique thing is it's all about how it's programmed. And the AI, the beauty behind it is it continues to relearn. And if it misses something, it won't miss it again. And so it continues, it is constantly learning. And so obviously we as humans, we do that too. And as a physician, we have to take, continuing medical education, CME credits every year to maintain our license, maintain our certifications and things of that nature. But we can't hold that much information and be exactly retain it and bring it out when we need it all the time, unless you have a photographic memory. And I've only known a couple of people in my life that had true photographic memories, which is, it's astounding to see how these people work and how their brain works. It's much like an AI type of software would work. But I can count on one hand how many people there are, at least that I know. And there's just not that many people that are that bright. We're all bright and our brains work great, but we just can't access that kind of memories. Even the guys that are very, very bright, they study for a test, they get all this information. As soon as they pass the test, that information is gone. It's in their head somewhere, but they can't retrieve it again. People with photographic memories, they can retrieve it a lot better. They still have to study like everybody else, but they can retrieve it a lot better. And so that component of AI with let's say with the mammograms and stuff like that, that's incredible. And so that's where it goes back to where I said, I am a little worried for my friends that are radiologists, because, you look at as an example, the rural communities, there's not enough doctors. And so even now, let's say there's not a radiologist to see if the person is having a obstructed colon or they have an appendicitis, because the two, you treat them vastly different. Okay. And both surgery, but if you're going in for appendicitis and somebody has a obstructed colon, very different surgery, and that could be life and death. So what they would do is those scans that would come up, if it was in a rural area where there was no doctors around, they didn't even have nurse practitioners, nobody. They've had this for probably 20 or 30 years, where the software, somebody in a big city, a radiologist at their house usually has all this computer with all of these monitors. So they, if they're on call, they get up and they can look at those scans and tell them, within 5 or 10 minutes, oh, that's appendicitis. This person needs to be treated, immediately. Or it's a little inflamed. You can watch them for the next 24 hours and then recheck them, rescan them, and send it back to me, and we'll see where they're at. Now with AI, they can do that. They have you don't necessarily need a radiologist. You just need a doctor that can do, let's say a general surgeon. Now, granted, for standard things, you don't necessarily need, we as humans can read x-rays and read certain scans and tell you, especially if we have experience with it, this is what they need, and go from there. But there's so many options with AI, especially for the rural communities, because they don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough doctors as it is, even in the big cities. So what do you think in the small cities? Nobody wants to live there.
So how do you see that that's going to be implemented in those countries or those communities?
I'm talking here in the states.
In just rural cities.
Rural areas. Texas, there's a lot of, I'm from Texas. And so it's interesting because there's a lot of communities that are extremely rural, and Texas is a big state, and there's not a city for 2 or 3 hours, a big city, and so some of those smaller cities that have probably less than 2,000 people, but they still have an urgent care or a small hospital, and they definitely have clinics. Those are very important, and so that's where AI, I think, is going to really help.
What about don't you think it's going to get to the point where we're just going to go take scans? Or just hormone, check your hormones, blood work, the basics.
Yeah.
Just everything's going to become diagnostics.
Yep.
And then sent to, and then telemed, and then prescription and distributed through whatever.
That's a great question, because do I think that's going to happen? Yeah, it's already happening now.
Yeah, and
in some of these more developed countries, they're already doing that.
Like aren't our systems a little bit antiquated, unless you're saying doing a checkup and you have a lump, whatever. But then if you have a lump, couldn't you just get a CNR or whatever it is, or
you're talking about a CEA?
That's one of the physician's assistants, right?
Yeah,
and they can do the physical checks, right?
And that's already happening.
And taking the blood. It's there's no need for because you have a shortage of doctors,
yeah,
right? So then do you really should we really focus on having doctors everywhere, or should we focus on doctors only doing the main thing?
That's exactly what we should do. And that's what I think they're leading to, because there isn't enough people going into medicine.
Right? Yeah.
It's kind of sad. I mean, the people that wanted to go into medicine, either they just don't have the scores to get in, or it's just too darn expensive. Now, from what I paid as going through medical school and everything, and I was in the military, but let's say I wasn't in the military, it's a fraction. Literally, it was about a fourth, at best, maybe a third of what kids coming out at even university, not just the private medical schools are so expensive.
Yeah.
You're talking $300,000-400,000, and by the time everything is said and done, it's $500,000 that they owe back, from all their training and living and everything that you have to pay, and the tuition and everything. So AI is going to help in that aspect, because we don't have as many doctors and there's less people. I should say there's not less people going into medicine. It's just there's less of the appropriate people that can pass, that can do the work that you need. Because the thing is, you don't have to be brilliant to be a doctor, but man, you have to have grit, because you just have to keep going. Sometimes when you're exhausted, you hadn't slept, and you have to be able to keep going and be able to think on your feet. And some people that are even very bright people, they have trouble doing that.
Because you don't sleep very much, right? And then
you don't. Now they've kind of, we always say, I've always seen medicine as a kind of fraternity, and like when we would be there, because I was a professor of anesthesia, and I'm like, hey, you can call me, but I'll just see it as a sign of weakness. Not really. Anybody could have called me so I can go see a patient if they need me to see him. But that's kind of the kind of thing that we talked about, that back when I was doing it, we would work 120 hours a week, and 7 times 24 is only 168. So you can see how many hours we work. Now they have a 80-hour maximum, because people need to get a certain amount of hours of sleep and blah blah blah. And hey, that is great. Now that I'm older, I need to have my sleep. But other than that, that's just kind of how we think. And so I think, getting back to what we were talking about with AI, it's going to provide a service that we definitely need, especially in smaller communities, definitely in the rural communities. And then even in the larger metropolitan areas, because there's still not enough doctors, or the doctors are in a very specific
network area.
Well, that's also too. Now you're talking about insurance, and oh my gosh, that's a whole other ball game right there. But AI is going to be a part of all of that. And so what people need to understand is you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's great and it's amazing and it does some crazy things. It makes my life easier, because I can literally, like, if I have to write a letter, I can tell it what I want with references and everything like that, footnotes or whatever, and boom, within literally 30 seconds, it comes up.
You think it's cool. Your kids are going to think it's normal, and they're not going to care.
I know, they don't even care about it. But I think it's cool. But I still have to go and evaluate and review because I've even utilized some stuff. I do it mainly just to make my documentation a lot faster and easier.
Yeah, that's the best.
Because it does. It makes it easier.
I like it for the admin thing. I hated admin work.
Right now, especially in the American healthcare system, documentation and data and all that other stuff that we have to deal with, coding and that, once again, that goes back with the insurance. That's all going to be made so much easier because of AI. And that's where it's great. Now, the negative aspect of AI is that people put too much trust into it. They think, oh, it's 100% right. And don't get me wrong, the AI programs have already passed all the USMLE licensing examinations for medicine. It has like a 95% pass rate in dealing with how well it does on those type of tests. So don't get me wrong, it can take a test, which is great. But to give you a proper diagnosis, this is the thing I always said to my residents when I was a professor of anesthesia. I was there attending. Everybody wants to look at monitors. In anesthesia, as an example, we want to look at monitors, make sure everything's going all right. But nobody looks at the patient. You can look at a monitor and everything looks great, but the patient's blue. And you're like, well, their CO2 is still there, or their SATs. So what? Sometimes that stuff is delayed and it still looks normal, but the patient is coding. you always have to look at your patient and you have to touch your patient to make sure that what you're getting or what you're thinking the patient has is what they have, you know? And so that's what I have trouble with AI, because AI will tell you everything, by the good and the bad. As doctors, we need to use it as just a component on how we learn things, or how we're trying to diagnose a particular issue that a patient may have that can help us quickly, okay? Whereas when you have patients that just want to talk about that, I like questions. I like them to give me questions, but sometimes they focus on the things that have they happened? Yeah, but it would be very, very difficult for that thing to happen to them. They only focus on the negative and they don't focus on the positive for certain situations. Now, granted, that's in my pain management side of when I treat patients inside, and even in regenerative medicine, because they've been dealing with pain for so long, and so they're going to be thinking a little bit more negative. But AI can, man, it's going to help a lot, but there's also, it's not black and white. It has its negative aspects. So it's all about data. Everybody else said, oh, the golden rule, he who has the gold makes all the rules. Well, now it's not the golden rule in the sense that he who has the gold, it's he who has the data. You control the data, you're going to control everything to make the rules. And so that's what's a little worrisome with AI, because they're already having breaches. There's United Healthcare had one. What was it? Epic had one. There's some of these smaller software companies that utilize for EMR. I'm talking about EMR, electronic medical records. They utilize AI, which as well they should, but they've had breaches. And it's just for whatever the reason, or AI sees a glitch and it's thinking it's doing the right thing, but it sends it off to the wrong email, or sends it off to somebody, to another server that it shouldn't have sent it to, because this has to be a HIPAA compliant server, right? Yeah. And people always think when you have to be very careful. When I use ChatGPT or Grok, there's an aspect of it that is HIPAA compliant. And so, and I'm only using it for what, for this HPMI, that's the health information for the patient. And, but ChatGPT is not HIPAA compliant. Grok's not HIPAA compliant. There are aspects of it that can make it HIPAA compliant. So you have to be very, very careful with that, because once you put that out there of a very specific, the patient's information, if you don't do it in a software that is HIPAA compliant, now you've sent that patient's information out to Lord knows where. Yeah. Because everybody talks about, what is the cloud? Yeah, you send it to the cloud, and who knows what can get to it and get that information.
Then it'll start raining.
Who knows, man? And you have to be You have to be very careful with that, And so that's why a lot of people, it's great. Don't get me wrong; it is awesome, But it also, the other negative aspect, and this is the older person in me talking. People are reading less. They're only getting this is now our generation's Cliff Notes. I had Cliff Notes, but I had to read my Cliff Notes, right? There was an actual book that had Cliff Notes, and that's where we get that term. Their Cliff Notes is you just talk into your phone, and it summarizes everything for you. And so you have to really be careful with that. It is getting better, and I think literally by the week, these software engineers that are helping develop all these things, it's getting better and better.
And accuracy of information is really important on their
I don't want them giving me Wikipedia stuff that anybody can change. I want them to give me something from the Journal of Medicine, that I know, that's a good.
Well, you can also prompt it to say this from a medical journal, or is this from
And you can, but see, a lot, you and I may know that, but the standard person is not going to do that. They're going to just ask it a question and then maybe get a little bit more specific with that question, but not that specific.
So I think it really is for when I use AI, I've started to put my own mental barriers and guardrails, and I just use it in a way where I ask it as if it was people. See, the thing is, people use it as like an all-knowing, all-seeing eye.
You cannot use that. It's a great tool. But you have to put safeguards on.
I see it as the safeguards I use it as if I was talking to somebody who, in the most respectful manner. But if somebody who's autistic, right? Yeah. They have all this knowledge. They might be super smart, and they might be I know this and this and this and this, and they're excited. But then you bring up the social aspect of something. You bring up the issues that could be tied to something and it doesn't know the context properly, it's going to be like, well, no, but that's accurate because of this. And you have to say, well, there's also these emotional and and this and compliance.
There's nuances according to
things.
Where you are culturally.
Right.
You know, and this is the thing. There has been some issues with certain AI software in healthcare that has shown bias to a particular ethnic group, bias to income, bias to what part of the location is, if it's in a, East Texas or in Kentucky versus a big metropolitan area like New York or,
here's
or
the
LA.
thing.
So you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
And it's showing, and the reason I bring that up is because bias is not, it's telling you people, whether they're black, brown, or white, have the exact same symptoms, as an example. And the AI is telling you different treatments for each of these people, and it shouldn't. It should just be for a human, right? But
do you think it's one of those? Isn't that situation where Elon Musk had the Tesla, and the Tesla self-driving has to choose between a baby in a carriage with the mom and a little boy with a ball down the street, and the car can swerve left or right to avoid whatever, but it has to choose one, and it's like, choose who's gonna die. And they've put it in situations.
Well, they did, what is it, iRobot with Will Smith. It was the exact same thing. And that's why at first he didn't like any of those robots, because he wanted the robot to save the little girl.
Yeah.
But the robot looked at both situations, its AI computer, and found that there was an 83% chance that he was going to survive versus 31% chance for that little girl. And so the robot saved him. The sad thing is that they want, as an example, AI wants us to flourish, but sometimes it will.
You have a higher chance, but then that girl had the rest of her life. Wasn't she a little girl, right?
Yeah,
so she had the rest of her life.
And that's just an example, and that's in the movies, and
But that is how it works.
But you have to kind of think about that. That's the ethics behind.
And that's medical.
AI.
That's if you're in a medical situation, and if it was like some sort of futuristic emergency. I don't know how. You never know, but
it's always going to triage. There's been issues with this AI software in different triage, and triage is just that. You triage who's going to make it, triage who has less a percentage, and you have to treat the people that you can save, and sometimes the other ones you just can't save, and that's the whole aspect of triaging. They're going to do that also, but they are going to triage black and white, meaning it's going to develop a probability, an algorithm in its head to see all the symptoms and all the issues that's in that particular situation, in that emergent situation. And is that like we're going to save this one? Is
that like, for example, you only have like X amount of morphine or whatever it is, and X amount of antibiotics, and we're in the middle of like the Iraqi whatever war. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that the situation? Like, if there's like a war,
yeah, and you have to ration that in that sense. Let's say you only have a certain amount of medication, and so as humans, we're going to try to do. That's just how we're built. We're going to try to do the best we can for everybody, because you want everybody to survive as much as we can, and give a little bit here, give a little bit here. Whereas an AI computer's brain might think, well, this patient, plus this patient has other illnesses. Even if I give them this, they'll be comfortable or they'll be great for a day or two. But this other patient, if I give them a little bit more, they'll probably stabilize and be perfect. And so it's not going to try to heal everybody. It's going to heal the ones with the highest probability of actually surviving, and recovering and such. And so once again, that goes back to the ethics of AI.
Is that good? Is that bad?
Is it good or bad? It's neither, kind of. It tells itself that it's going to help and save who they can, and the ones that cannot be saved or have the lowest probability, they will go on the wayside.
Yeah.
And see, as humans, we'll treat everybody, and we'll try to. Now, granted, if somebody's just really, really sick, you can, or they've had a bad car accident, you know the ones that are just like I'm not going to put my attention towards somebody that I know is bleeding out and I can't do anything versus somebody that's not.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, you see the movies where the person has to choose on their own.
Yeah.
Like, they're all like, oh, and they're like, you could save me, but don't do it. Go save them or whatever, you know?
It's not going to do that. And that goes back to that, referring to the Will Smith movie, The I, Robot. He told that robot, don't save me, save her. And the robot looked and put his hand through the window and pulled him out and took him, so he was out of because I think it was in the ocean or a lake or something like that. And the little girl drowned. And so, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because it's going to be making, and whenever we do have these robots in China, they have a hospital that there's approximately, I think they have 40 robots that are treating
surgery,
patients.
right? Or no?
I think they do minor things. I don't think they do true surgery.
Is there surgery?
The surgery is still controlled by a human. But they actually have robots that do all of the.
No, but they have robot assisted surgeries now, right? Where the hand will.
Yeah. Oh, they just did it in out where I trained at St. Luke's.
Like it'll hold the like skin open or whatever.
You have to. Yeah, they did a first heart transplant. They opened the guy. They didn't do it like I have, from here to here, crack the chest, and you open the chest, and you have the ribs open like this, and here's the heart. They didn't do that. They did it from underneath. They made a kind of a U shape.
That's a lot
incision.
less damaging, or
yeah, but they're only able to do that is because the robot, the hands are just so precise and specific, and so, but it's still controlled.
But if
heart
you
surgeon.
Tried to do it, or whatever surgeon tried to do it,
we probably wouldn't be as good. And so, but that's why we're doing it. I mean,
I think in the long run, it's going to be great for surgery, right?
It's already turning in. They've had the Da Vinci robot forever, and mainly with for GYN, urology, and general surgery type treatments. They're only getting better. Every year it gets better and better. And now it's just updating by software. And now they're throwing in. They have some of those robots that have AI software within them that constantly learns from a particular surgeon how they do certain things. And so the surgeon still has to run it and do it, but the equipment as a tool is better and better.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing. It's amazing the potential that we have with AI. I just want people to understand that you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and you have to do your own evaluation, and you have to, especially if you're talking about medicine or anything like that, you have to talk to the doctor that has been treating you for however many years, or at least a doctor that you feel comfortable with to give you the pros and cons of whatever you're talking about. And so that's what's important. And I guess, all this stuff we can talk all day long about AI and how good it is, and some of the scary stuff about it and the potential that it has. But the bottom line is that you, as a human, we have to utilize them as tools. We can't just put all our eggs in that one basket and, this is where I believe in this wholeheartedly, and this is the only thing that works, because that's not the case. And it just doesn't, it's not, it can only be a tool. It cannot be a
end all.
That's it. And, what it says goes, and everything else doesn't matter. It cannot be that way.
Yeah, that's like essentially how I've been using, and I think that's interesting. And it's also nice to have the perspective of Ask Dr. G, Late Nights with Dr. G.
Yeah.
Because you know why? That's essentially what we are trying to do, is implement this stuff in our lives. And how else could we do that without a more qualified person around?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
and you have to have a qualified person, or if you're talking about healthcare, or if you're talking about engineering.
Now, maybe like 500 or 1,000 years in the future, who knows, or whatever, 200 years.
1,000 years in the future.
It won't matter.
It won't matter.
Forget humans at that point.
It probably will be like how it is in the movies. And all
then
that.
it'll truly be like genius AI. I mean, maybe not even, maybe it'll be only 100 years.
What I believe will happen, and this goes on, and he's already trying to do it, with
autonomous AI.
No. And we're talking about bringing AI into the human brain.
Oh gosh,
like Elon Musk.
That's what I don't like.
I know, because And
how could you put electrical in your brain? You don't think that's gonna have like some over 20 years having a chip in your brain? Like
it's not that. It's being you can probably be controlled.
I don't.
It's gonna be.
You think that's actually possible?
I absolutely think that's possible. If you know, they're already right now. They're already in all of the software that's being utilized is AI software. They're now utilizing the biological neurons of the human brain. They're helping run and control certain software components of an actual computer, but it's using biological neurons to do this. I just read an article yesterday about it.
This is
and
so
it is
crazy.
So
I can't even.
The thing is, once we fuse the biological with the electrical,
if I want to say no, and I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen, they're gonna like,
well,
willpower
to that extent, yeah, it will eventually happen, and there's going to be some ethical things. That
I don't know about. I don't know. Because if you refuse. Like I refuse. Like it's like
well, right
if
now
I'm like,
it's not happening.
Kill Dr.G. I'm not gonna sit there and I'm gonna be like, no. Like it's not gonna.
Yeah,
you know
exactly. But I mean, there's been movies about that. Are we there yet? No, absolutely not. But I think there is going to be a potential. You have to understand
I don't know if it's
that everything that is discovered, or like with the government, it's all of it is always tested through the military. Everything's always tested through the military, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very, very critical of these things, but we also can't be naive in thinking that, oh, it's going to be all great.
Honestly, I don't think humans are going to make it before we get to that level.
What I'm scared about, and it's been in so many movies, but I just unfortunately feel that as we allow AI to get smarter and smarter, and God forbid because you don't have to code anymore. AI will code for you. You just have to tell them the right prompt.
Wait till it gets access to, it'll wait and it'll say, create this robotics factory, and it'll wait until we physically build it. And then once it has the access, it'll build itself.
Oh,
and then I don't need you anymore, Terminator.
Yeah. We look at Terminator. We look at what is it? Marvel with Thanos thinking, oh, we need to take away half the population
but
of the
how
universe.
Much cooler of a way would it be for the human race to end? I think that would be the most, that would be the coolest
I don't know
way.
about that.
No, we should purposely make Terminator and just let it, literally on purpose, build it and be like, okay, click the button and be like, delete us. It'll be fun.
Well, I don't think
cool
fun
would that be?
I don't think fun is what
No. It'll be trained to everybody has to have instant death. You can't have a long, slow, painful death,
I don't know. It's not going to be. You're dealing with the Terminator and Matrix and all this other crazy stuff. And
I'm just kidding. And I think it would be cool. It'd be funny. We could cut this out if you want.
You're scaring me, man. You're scaring me. Okay.
I might be the guy. I'm going to be in an evil lab, building it.
Yeah.
There might be someone who will say that though. We need to end humanity. Thanos. That's what Thanos was.
Yeah. Well. He just wanted to make it. I see his concept behind why he wanted to do it, to preserve, because what happens right now, we have 8 billion plus people. We're sucking all the natural resources out of this.
Would you rather have 4 billion that live good, or would you have 8 billion that suffer? Yeah, kind of.
That's the whole concept of all that, and it makes sense if you want. If you want a particular plant to survive, so their natural resources are not.
It's like pruning a tree. You either want it has overgrown, and you either want it to thrive.
Yeah, for it to thrive, you have to cut away some of it, or kill some of it, so that the main part can thrive and get even bigger.
Right.
We do it every day to our landscaping, and so yeah, I think AI is going to tell us what we can and cannot do, but I also think that AI, wants us to do what's best for us. And sometimes we don't know what's best for us, but utilizing probability and statistics, it will tell us what's best.
But there will probably be some catastrophic event where we'll say that shouldn't have happened, even though it was probably probable.
It's hard to say. That's why, I love it, and it's great, and it helps a lot as a tool. But people that think that you want it to control everything, it's going to make everything better. It may not,
Yeah.
It may not make things better. It may make it better for humans in general, but not necessarily for the human that wants it to be better. Hey guys, just want to recap a little bit about, what we talked about on this episode. Mainly everything AI, focusing on how good it can be, but also the negatives, what it can do that may not be as good, how we need to utilize it as a tool and not as a fix-all or end-all for anything. AI has its great aspects of it, but it also has issues within it that we need to think about. And as for me, if we're talking about healthcare is very, very important, and I utilize AI as a tool, but I also keep it at arm's length because I don't want it to take care of my patients. I want it to help me take care of my patients. So think about that when you're utilizing anything AI, and come back for our next episode.